Hi and welcome to Global Happiness Poker Education and to the first episode. I will try to continuously put up analysis of hands that I play online, and I will try to focus on the most common spots. I will use PioSolver, which is a kind of an AI that tells you what the right strategy is. We are gonna program it with optimal ranges for us and our opponent. I will talk about that later in the video. So let's go to the hand. This hand I played a while ago on Poker Stars, and we are very deep here. We are 170 bigs effective stacks deep, and with effective stack I mean the smallest stack of the stacks involved in the hand, and in this case it's my stack because it's the smaller of the two. So let's see what happens here. I raise with about 2.2 big blinds, and it folds to my opponent in the cutoff that calls, and then also the big blind calls, but we can really skip him, and also the PioSolver just solve problems for two players. And then the flop comes, Jack to 6 and 2 hearts. We have 1 heart, so we have yeah, pretty decent hand here, and I elected to bet 1/3, and my opponent 3-betted me. Tricky spot here, but I have 2 overcards. I have a backdoor flush draw and I have a backdoor straight draw. So yeah, I was like in between here, folding or calling, but I choose to call here, and the bottom folded. We go to the turn, and it was an ace of hearts, and that's a card that's pretty good for my overall range, and I think I should have some donk bets here, some leads. And with the king of hearts blocking the nut flush draw, it's a pretty good candidate. I also have a gut shot, so I bet out half pot and he folds. So that's kind of the whole hand there, and now we are gonna look at PioSolver to see if my play was GTO approved. So let's open PioSolver, and here we have it. So let's first go to the pre-flop, where here is a pre-flop ranges. This is a pre-flop range for me. I'm out of position, and this is my opponent's range. And then you put in the board here, and the pot size and the effective stacks, and also you put in some bet sizes here that on the flop, turn, and river for both opponents. So you have to program it with something, and in reality an AI can be extremely good, but if I would put in all like hundreds of bet sizes here, it would take enormous amount of memory, and my computer is not that fast, and the processor won't be able to make the calculation. So but this is pretty much this is good. So we can take a look at what I open with from under gun +2. So if you haven't seen this before, it's a representation of all the hands in the deck. So here you have aces, you have all the pairs here. And then on this side, this triangle here represent all the suited hands. Like, for example, ace-king suited represents ace-king of hearts, clubs, diamonds, and spades. So that's 4 combinations. And then you have from ace-king suited to ace-2 suited here, from king-queen suited to king-2 suited, etc., down to 3-2 suited. And then you have the non-suited hands here, like ace-king off, down to 3-2 off, all these hands. So all the hands in in a deck of cards are represented here. And the yellow here is my starting range. It's the game theory optimal starting range. So I will open with all my suited aces and ace 10 of non-suited cards up to ace king, and some pairs. And 9-8 suited, for example, I'm opening 20% of the time, and 80% of the time I'm folding. So that's my range. It's very important to keep the range in mind as you go from both your range but also your opponent's range. To keep in mind when you go to the flop, because then you have narrowed his range to specific hands, and then when you go to the flop, to the turn, you narrow it even more, and so on. So it's you're playing kind of a detective. So villain, who was on the cutoff, he calls with this range. So he calls with pretty much all the pairs. Aces and kings, they are not called, but because they are 3 bets on pre-flop, so they are not in the range, and ace-king suited not in the range as well. So this is a calling range that the villain has, and some of them are 3 betting, like ace-jack suited is called 40% of the time, and 3-betted 60% of the time, and so on. So this is a representation of his range. And then we can take a look at the flop. So the flop comes jack of hearts, 6 of clubs, and 2 of hearts. And we have king, queen off. So you can see here that most of the hands are actually checking, like 81% of the hands are checked. And that is because we're playing out of position, so we realize our equity less often. So that means that our opponent, he will have more info than we have on all streets, since we have to take the decision first, and then he knows what we are doing, so he can adopt his strategy after that. So yeah, but this board is pretty equal in terms of overall equity between me and my opponent, but because he's acting last, we are gonna check a lot. But there are some combination of hands that we actually should bet, and one of them is actually king queen that we opened with here. So like, yeah, almost 1/3 of the time, or maybe 1/4, 1/3, 1/4, we should open this hand, and the rest we should check. And if we look at our hand, King of Hearts, Queen of Clubs. It actually, I bet it half, no, I bet it 1/3. You should mostly check it like in 70% of all cases, but we can actually open this 30%, and 23% should be a small bet, like 1/3, like we did. So we are doing pretty good so far. Also, Ace 2, you can open, and yeah, Ace Jack and some other. There are you can open pretty much everything, but a small amount of the time. But yeah, this hand you can open more. So let's bet 1/3, and this is our opponent's counter strategy when we bet. And you see that he raises a lot. He raises almost 23%. He folds 20%, and he calls 58% of the time. And since we are not going to bet so much, he can actually put pressure on us by raising a lot. So he's raising a lot of sets here, 2s and 6s and jacks, and some Ace Jack. Of course, he has the top pair with a nut kicker, sort of. But also he is raising some bluff hands, like flush draws, like King 8, King 9, and yeah, King 10. But not all the flush draws, because he should be able to also have some flush draws in his calling range. So he elects to raise this time, and this is what we do. We hardly re-raise back here. It's only like 3%, so you can actually skip this. So it's either call or fold. So we should call about 2/3 of the time, and we call with basically all pairs, yeah, we have trips, a set here that we definitely are calling, and 8s, and but the 7s we can actually fold some of them if they don't have a heart, because we want the backdoor heart draw as well, that gives us some more equity. And even like Ace 2 is calling if we have a backdoor flush draw, in this case the clubs. But we are also folding a lot here. But if we take a look at our hand, we had King, Queen off. You can see that we are actually folding a lot here, but we are actually calling if we have a heart. Not all the time, but a lot. And our specific hand was the King of Hearts and Queen of Clubs. And actually that hand is folding more than the other heart hands. And that is, I think it is because we want him to have the backdoor flush draw when he raises. So when we have the club, it makes it less likely that he have that hand as a bluff. So we want to call mostly with hearts, but without the clubs. But our hand, we can actually call 17% of the time. So, but yeah, that's a mistake by me here by calling this hand. But we can do it 17% of the time. So we call his let's see, we call his raise, yeah, and then the Ace of Hearts comes on the turn, and this is what we do. And when the ace of hearts comes, we actually have we should actually lead some portion of the time here, as I told you previously. But we are mostly checking, as you can see, almost 80% checks, and then when we bet, we should bet pretty small, like 1/3 of the pot. I betted half pot, so that's not what you should mainly do. But yeah, we mostly check, but we can actually bet with some of the sets here. For example, we can bet even with some pairs with a heart, and we can bet with some flushes, like you can see here. We bet with some flushes, and if we bet with some flushes, we must also have some let's see where it is. Yeah, here is like king queen off. So we can't just bet with our nutted hands. We must also bet with some draws, and in this case we draw to the nuts with the king of hearts. So as you can see, our combo, the king of hearts and queen of clubs, is betting most of the time here. So we should bet 1/3 here, and we bet actually 60% of the time with this actual hand. So here I was pretty accurate, not with the sizing though, but with the bet itself. So you see pretty much all the other hands that doesn't have a heart should check, but we should mostly fold them on the flop. But those who are left, but we can bet a lot of heart draws here, because we need to have some bluffs as well as our nutted hands. So we bet 1/3, and here he should actually fold like 35% of the time, which he did. Call 38% and raise 26% or 27%. Yeah, and this is how his range looks like. Yes, so he folded, and we won the pot. So that's it for this time, and I hope you enjoyed this short first video, and I will upload more shortly. Bye bye.